Denny's is closing more locations this year than they actually expected before. The chain says it'll shut down between 70 and 90 of its restaurants.
Every morning, millions of Americans sit down at a breakfast chain and have no idea what is actually in the food in front of them. One chain on this list has been cited for putting food out that sat at dangerous temperatures for hours. Another one, a place most people walk right past, has built the cleanest breakfast operation in the country. We checked the inspection records, the customer complaints, and the supply chain data. 5 breakfast chains to avoid. 5 that actually earn your trust. Let's go. Worst number 5. Denny's. Denny's used to be the kind of place anyone could afford. Late-night pancakes, cheap coffee that never stopped coming, a grand slam that felt like a real deal. In 2026, most of that is gone. The prices have climbed so much that regular customers barely recognize the menu anymore. A basic breakfast combo that cost around $9 in 2022 now regularly hits $14 in most locations. The Grand Slam, which was always supposed to be the affordable option, has crossed $12 in many places. A customer in Ohio summed it up in a Google review. Came in for the usual Sunday breakfast. Almost fell out of my chair when I saw the prices. Won't be making this a habit anymore. But the price problem is only part of the story. Health inspection records from Denny's locations across multiple states show recurring violations that go well beyond what you would expect from a chain this size. The issues keep coming up in the same areas: food being held at the wrong temperature, cross-contamination between raw and cooked items, and kitchen surfaces not being cleaned properly. These are not small mistakes. These are the kinds of problems that make people sick. The overnight and late-night shifts are where things get especially concerning. Denny's stays open around the clock, which means the kitchen never fully shuts down for a proper deep clean. Staffing during those late hours is often minimal, sometimes just 2 or 3 people managing the whole restaurant. When you have a skeleton crew trying to cook, serve, and clean at the same time, corners get cut. A former Denny's cook in Georgia posted in a restaurant worker forum, "We were stretched so thin at 3 a.m. that cleaning the line was basically impossible. You just did what you could." The equipment maintenance problem compounds the staffing issue in ways that most customers never consider. Several health inspection reports from Denny's locations in 2023 and 2024 cited not just temperature violations, but the underlying cause: refrigeration units and warming equipment operating outside their specified ranges because maintenance requests had been deferred. When equipment is not working properly and staffing is thin, the safety margin that a well-run kitchen maintains disappears almost entirely. A former kitchen manager in Arizona wrote in an exit interview shared in a hospitality industry forum, "We had a walk-in that ran 3 degrees too warm for months. Corporate kept saying they'd send someone. They didn't." Denny's has closed hundreds of locations in 2025 and into 2026, blaming low customer traffic. But traffic doesn't just disappear. It leaves when people stop feeling like they are getting a fair deal. And right now, a lot of Denny's customers have quietly decided they are not, but Denny's is just the start. The chain at worst number 4 has been playing games with its menu that most customers have never noticed. Worst number 4. IHOP. IHOP built its whole brand around one simple idea: pancakes for everyone at a price anyone could manage. The International House of Pancakes has turned into the International House of Second Thoughts. A short stack of pancakes, which should be one of the most affordable things on any breakfast menu, is now approaching $9 at many locations as a standalone item. A full breakfast combo regularly clears $15. A family of 4 going out for a weekend pancake breakfast is now easily spending $60 before tip. A mom in Texas described her last visit in a Facebook post that got thousands of shares. "Took my 3 kids for pancakes like we always do. The bill was more than dinner at a sit-down restaurant. That was our last trip." The food safety side of things has not been much better. IHOP parent company Dine Brands has reported declining traffic and closed locations across multiple markets through 2025 and into 2026. But what is not making the news as much is what health inspectors have been finding at individual locations. Records from multiple states show violations centered around improper food holding temperatures, especially for items that sit on warming stations for extended periods between orders. Pancake batter, egg mixtures, and cooked proteins all require careful temperature management. When a kitchen is understaffed and moving fast, those temperatures drift. A former IHOP server in Florida wrote in an online review forum, "The food would sit under the heat lamps way longer than it should. Management knew. Nobody wanted to throw it out because of the waste cost." That kind of pressure, where staff are told to save product over following safety rules, is exactly the environment that produces sick customers. The syrup station, which seems like a low-risk touchpoint compared to the kitchen, has also appeared in health inspection reports more often than it should. Shared syrup dispensers and condiment stations at IHOP locations have been cited in multiple states for inadequate cleaning frequency, a detail that feels minor until you consider how many hands touch those dispensers across a busy weekend morning service. A health inspector's note from a 2024 Texas location read, "Syrup dispensers and condiment holders visibly soiled. No documented cleaning schedule observed." Subscribe to this channel right now if you want to stay ahead of what these big chains are actually doing behind the scenes, because the next 3 entries on this worst list are going to get even more specific. Worst number 3. Waffle House. Waffle House has a devoted following. People love it with a kind of loyalty that goes beyond the food itself. It is part of Southern culture in a way that is genuinely hard to argue with. But the food safety record attached to that loyalty deserves a serious, honest look. Between 2020 and 2024, Waffle House locations across the South have built up health code violations at a rate that is significantly higher than the casual dining average. The problems keep appearing in the same places: improper food storage temperatures, failure to sanitize cooking surfaces properly, inadequate hand-washing compliance, and cross-contamination between raw and ready-to-eat items. These are not paperwork problems. These are the conditions that send people to the hospital. The operating model creates specific risks that other chains do not have to deal with. Waffle House never closes. Every single location is open 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There are no overnight shutdown windows for thorough cleaning. The grill never goes cold. Every cleaning task has to happen around active cooking, and in a small open kitchen running non-stop, that is genuinely difficult to do properly. In 2023, a video went viral showing a Waffle House cook handling raw food and then touching ready-to-eat items without washing their hands in between. The clip got millions of views and triggered health department inspections at multiple locations. Several of those inspections found exactly the kinds of violations the video suggested. A customer who had eaten at one of the inspected locations wrote, "I watched the video and immediately thought about every time I've eaten there. Not a great feeling." Waffle House Corporate responded by saying the video did not reflect company standards. That is probably true. The inspection results that followed, however, suggested the gap between company standards and actual practice was bigger than a single statement could close. The open kitchen format, which Waffle House has always marketed as a transparency feature, where you can watch your food being cooked right in front of you, cuts both ways on the food safety question. Customers can see what is happening on the grill. What they generally cannot see is the back-of-house storage area, the hand-washing compliance rate of staff during a busy shift, or whether the sanitizing solution in the cleaning buckets is being mixed at the correct concentration. Those are the areas where inspection violations keep appearing, out of sight of the customers watching their eggs cook. What is happening at worst number 2 is less visible than a viral video, but it is documented in federal records that most customers have never thought to check. Worst number 2. McDonald's breakfast. McDonald's breakfast is the most consumed morning meal in America. Millions of people eat the Egg McMuffin, the hotcakes, the hash browns every single day without thinking twice about what went into making them. That scale makes the problems here more significant than at any other breakfast chain on this list. The supply chain story is the one most people do not know about. McDonald's sources eggs, processed meat products, and dairy from a network of industrial suppliers so large and spread out that keeping track of where everything comes from is genuinely difficult. When something goes wrong in that supply chain, the size of the network means it can take weeks to identify the source. That is not a theory. It is exactly what happened during the 2024 Quarter Pounder E. coli outbreak, when the response time between first illness reports and supplier identification stretched across multiple weeks while contaminated product was still being served. The egg products used in most McDonald's breakfast items are not fresh cracked eggs. They are processed liquid egg mixtures supplied in bulk from industrial facilities. While these products go through safety checks, the industrial scale of the operation and the number of facilities involved creates a traceability problem that smaller chains simply do not have. A food safety consultant who reviewed the company's supply chain practices for an industry publication wrote, "The system works until it doesn't, and when it doesn't, the lag time before anyone catches it is the real danger." McDonald's also uses beef treated with ammonium hydroxide in some of its processed meat products, a practice that is legal in the United States but has been banned in Canada and restricted under European Union food standards. Most customers have never heard of this. It does not appear prominently on any menu board. A customer in New York wrote in a review after learning about the practice, "I've been feeding this to my kids for years. I genuinely had no idea." The breakfast rush at McDonald's also creates specific operational pressures that compound the supply chain concerns. The period between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. is the highest volume window of the day at most locations, and the speed pressure during that window can override the careful temperature monitoring and food handling protocols that the safety system depends on. Multiple health inspection reports from McDonald's locations in 2023 and 2024 cited violations that occurred specifically during the morning rush, when staff were moving too fast to follow every protocol. A former McDonald's crew member in Illinois described the dynamic. During the breakfast rush, you're just trying to keep up. Nobody's stopping to check a thermometer. And yet, even McDonald's has not produced anything quite like what is sitting at worst number 1. Worst number 1. Hardee's. Hardee's sits at the top of this worst list for a combination of reasons that build on each other in a way that is hard to dismiss, and a documented history that goes beyond what most customers ever find out. The food safety record at Hardee's, which shares a parent company with Carl's Jr., has been consistently problematic through 2023, 2024, and into 2025. Health inspection records pulled from locations across the Southeast and Midwest show a pattern of violations that includes improper cooking temperatures for meat products, failure to maintain safe cold holding for raw ingredients, and cross-contamination issues in food preparation areas. These are not one-off incidents at struggling stores. They appear across markets and across ownership structures with a consistency that points to something systemic. In 2022, multiple Hardee's locations reported E. coli contamination, traced back to beef patties from a supplier that had not passed its most recent safety audit. The key detail in that story, the one that got buried in the coverage, is that the parent company continued purchasing beef from that supplier after the failed audit was documented. Cost was the reason. The cheaper supplier was preferred even when the safety record said it should not have been. A supply chain manager who previously worked for the parent company described the internal pressure in an anonymous interview with a food industry publication. The message was always that the audit is a formality if the price is right. That was the culture. In 2023, Hardee's was also forced to issue a recall after salmonella was found in chicken products from a major supplier. What made that recall especially troubling was how it was discovered, not through the company's own internal testing, but through sick customer reports. The contamination was not caught by anyone at the company. It was caught because people got sick. A customer in Tennessee, who was one of those affected, told a local news station, "I went to my doctor thinking I had the stomach flu. Turns out it was the chicken sandwich I had 3 days before." The breakfast menu at Hardee's, which relies heavily on biscuits, sausage, and egg products prepared during a high-volume morning window, carries specific risks that the chain's documented kitchen culture makes harder to manage safely. Biscuit production requires careful temperature management of both raw dough and finished product. Sausage and egg items require precise cooking temperatures to eliminate pathogen risk. When the internal culture treats safety audits as a formality and relies on sick customers as the alarm bell for contamination problems, those risks do not get managed. They get ignored until someone ends up at the doctor. The pattern here is not bad luck. It is a procurement culture that consistently chooses cost over safety, and a testing system that relies on sick customers as the alarm bell. That combination belongs at the top of the worst list. Now, here are the 5 breakfast chains that are genuinely worth your time and your trust. Best number 5. Bob Evans. Bob Evans is a Midwestern institution that does not get nearly enough credit in the national breakfast conversation. While flashier chains have been chasing trends and raising prices, Bob Evans has been quietly doing the basics right for decades. The menu is built around farm-style comfort food: biscuits and gravy, farm-fresh egg platters, house-made sausage, and skillet meals that taste like someone's grandmother actually made them. The sourcing behind those items is more thoughtful than most people realize. Bob Evans has maintained long-standing supplier relationships that prioritize consistency and quality over the lowest possible commodity price, a model that larger chains have largely abandoned in the push for tighter margins. Health inspection records for Bob Evans locations across Ohio, Indiana, and surrounding states consistently show above-average compliance scores. The violations that do appear are mostly minor and non-recurring, which is the pattern you see when a company actually invests in training, rather than just distributing a training video and hoping for the best. Bob Evans has also avoided the dramatic price escalation that has driven customers away from Denny's and IHOP. The menu prices have risen modestly in line with ingredient cost increases, but the chain has not pursued the aggressive margin expansion strategy that has made its direct competitors feel like a bad deal. A regular customer in Columbus, Ohio, who has been eating at the same Bob Evans location for over 20 years, wrote in a review, "The food tastes exactly the same as it always has. That kind of consistency is rarer than people think." Bob Evans is solid, but the chain at best number 4 is doing something that most breakfast chains do not even attempt. Best number 4, First Watch. First Watch is a daytime-only breakfast and brunch chain that has quietly become one of the most impressive food operations in the entire category. And the reason most people haven't heard of it is the same reason it works so well. It closes every day at 2:30 p.m. That closure time is not just a business decision. It is a food safety architecture. By operating only during daytime hours, First Watch can dedicate meaningful time every evening to deep cleaning, equipment maintenance, and kitchen preparation that 24-hour operations structurally cannot do. A kitchen that resets every night is a fundamentally safer environment than one that never fully closes. The menu at First Watch changes seasonally, which sounds like a marketing choice but has real operational implications. Fresh, seasonal ingredients sourced through regional supplier relationships mean shorter supply chains, better traceability, and genuinely fresher product than a chain working from a fixed national supply contract. A manager at a First Watch location in Florida described the sourcing model in a local newspaper profile. "We know where almost everything comes from. That's not something you can say at most places in this industry." Health inspection records for First Watch locations consistently rank among the highest in the breakfast category. The daytime-only model also creates a staffing environment that is meaningfully different from 24-hour competitors. Because First Watch operates during standard daylight hours, it tends to attract and retain more experienced, more consistent staff than chains requiring overnight crews. Lower turnover means more institutional knowledge in the kitchen, and more institutional knowledge means safer, more consistent food handling across every shift. A longtime First Watch server in Arizona wrote in a staff forum, "I've worked breakfast at 3 different chains. This is the only one where the kitchen actually runs the same way every single day." Hit the like button right now if you think more breakfast chains should be operating the way First Watch does, because the next 3 entries are the ones that the rest of the industry should genuinely be studying. Best number 3, Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel is easy to dismiss as a nostalgia brand, and plenty of food critics do exactly that. But strip away the gift shop and the rocking chairs, and what you have is a breakfast operation with sourcing standards and kitchen discipline that most of its competitors simply cannot match. The biscuits at Cracker Barrel are made from scratch, in-house, every single day. That is not a marketing claim that gets quietly walked back in the fine print. It is a daily operational reality that requires trained staff, consistent ingredient sourcing, and a kitchen culture that values doing things the right way over doing them the fast way. A Cracker Barrel kitchen manager in Tennessee described the morning prep routine in a staff training video posted on the company's own channels. "We start the biscuits before most of our competitors have even unlocked the door." Cracker Barrel sources a significant portion of its breakfast ingredients from regional suppliers, a practice that shortens the supply chain and reduces the traceability problems that have hurt larger national chains on the worst list. The gravy is made in-house. The eggs are cooked to order rather than pre-prepared and held. These seem like small details, but they are the exact details that separate a breakfast that is genuinely fresh from one that just looks fresh. Health inspection records for Cracker Barrel locations show violation rates that are meaningfully lower than the casual dining breakfast average, and the violations that do appear are predominantly minor administrative issues rather than the critical temperature and cross-contamination violations that characterize the worst chains on this list. The company's investment in kitchen staff training is also reflected in its employee retention numbers, which consistently outperform the casual dining industry average. Experienced kitchen staff who stay at a location for years rather than months develop the kind of institutional knowledge around proper food handling that cannot be taught in a single orientation session. A customer in Virginia who stops at Cracker Barrel on every road trip wrote in a review, "Doesn't matter which location I go to. The biscuits are always the same. That's harder to do than it sounds." The chain at best number 2 has taken that consistency idea and built something even more rigorous around it. Best number 2, Chick-fil-A breakfast. Most people think of Chick-fil-A as a lunch and dinner destination. The breakfast operation deserves its own conversation because it is run with the same level of discipline and supplier oversight that has made the brand the highest revenue per location chain in America across all categories. The Chick-fil-A breakfast menu is built primarily around chicken, eggs, and biscuits. a narrow focus that creates the same operational advantage that benefits Raising Cane's lower on this list. A kitchen with a focused, limited menu can be trained, managed, and audited more thoroughly than one trying to execute 40 different items across multiple cooking methods simultaneously. Every item on the Chick-fil-A breakfast menu has been developed and refined with the same attention to preparation consistency that governs the rest of the operation. The supplier audit program is the foundation that makes everything else possible. Chick-fil-A conducts unannounced third-party audits of every supplier and every location, a protocol that creates a fundamentally different incentive structure than chains that schedule audits in advance. When a supplier or operator knows an inspection can happen at any time, the standard you keep between inspections is the actual standard, not a temporary cleanup. The eggs used in Chick-fil-A breakfast sandwiches are cooked fresh on a buttered grill rather than prepared from industrial liquid egg mixtures, a distinction that matters both for quality and for the traceability of the ingredient. A customer in Atlanta reviewing the egg white grill sandwich wrote, "You can actually taste the difference between real eggs and the fake stuff. Chick-fil-A uses real eggs. Most places don't." Health inspections of Chick-fil-A locations during breakfast service consistently return scores among the highest in the quick service breakfast category. The company's single operator franchise model, where each location is run by one dedicated operator rather than a multi-unit franchisee managing several properties remotely, also plays a meaningful role during breakfast service specifically. An operator who is personally present in their restaurant during the morning rush makes different decisions than a regional manager checking in by phone from across town. And yet, the best breakfast chain on this entire list is one that most people would not immediately associate with breakfast at all. Best number 1. Culver's Breakfast. Culver's is known for butter burgers and cheese curds. The breakfast operation, available at participating locations during morning hours, is genuinely one of the cleanest, most trustworthy, and most underrated breakfast experiences in the American quick service industry, and almost nobody is talking about it. The sourcing model is what sets Culver's apart from almost everything else on this list, worst and best combined. Culver's sources its beef, dairy, and egg products from regional farms that company leadership personally audits. This is not a marketing claim backed by a third-party certification that nobody checks. It is a direct sourcing relationship maintained by a company that has built its entire brand identity around the proposition that you should be able to know exactly where your food came from. The breakfast menu at Culver's centers on egg platters, breakfast sandwiches, and items built from the same farm-sourced ingredients that anchor the lunch and dinner operation. The eggs are fresh. The cheese comes from Wisconsin dairy farms with documented sourcing relationships. The sausage products are from suppliers that Culver's has personally vetted rather than purchasing from the cheapest available commodity source on a given day. Health inspection records for Culver's locations are consistently among the best in the quick service category, and those strong scores apply equally to breakfast service when a kitchen is dealing with the specific temperature and cross-contamination risks that come with handling multiple raw egg and raw meat products simultaneously in a high-volume environment. Managing that risk correctly requires more than a good supplier. It requires trained staff who understand why the protocols exist, not just what they are. A Culver's team trainer in Wisconsin, profiled in a local food magazine, described the morning training approach. "We don't just teach people the steps. We teach them what happens if you skip one. Once they understand that, they don't skip steps." The company publishes the names and locations of its beef and dairy suppliers on its own website, a transparency commitment that makes it one of the only quick service chains in America where a customer can actually verify independently the sourcing claims the brand makes in its marketing. A customer in Minnesota wrote in a review after checking the sourcing page, "I looked up the farm. It's real. It's 40 miles from where I live." That's not something I expected to be able to say about a fast food breakfast. What makes Culver's breakfast even more impressive is the consistency across its franchise network. The company requires franchise operators to complete an extensive training program before opening, and that training places specific emphasis on the morning service window, which the company has identified internally as the highest risk period for food safety errors across the quick service industry. Operators who complete the program score demonstrably better on their first-year health inspections than the industry average for new franchise locations, a result the company has cited in its own franchise recruitment materials as evidence that the training investment pays off in practice. Culver's earns the top spot on this list not because it has the biggest marketing budget or the most locations, but because it has built a breakfast operation on a foundation that is genuinely harder to maintain than most chains are willing to commit to. Direct sourcing, personal auditing, trained staff who understand food safety rather than just following laminated posters, and a transparency standard that holds up when customers actually check it. The best breakfast chains are not the ones with the most famous names or the most viral menu items. They are the ones where the people in charge of making your food took the job seriously before you ever sat down. Thanks for watching. If this ranking changed how you think about your morning routine, drop a comment below and tell us which chain surprised you the most. Want to see how these same chains stack up when it comes to lunch? Click the video on the left and I will meet you there.